So this is the first time, Phil, I've ever gone fishing with just a weight on the end of my line. Do you think there's justification in learning to cast properly before you go beach fishing?
Oh yeah. What's the point in going on a beach where you can cast 80 yards and you need 120? You've wasted your money on your bait, travel, food. The list is almost endless. You're just wasting money.
Okay.
All right.
So it's quite a good way of encouraging yourself to just practice casting is putting nothing on there but a weight, isn't it, really?
Oh yes. Well, there's a lot.
As soon as you put the rig on, it's a bit tempting to slap a worm on and get on with the job.
Well, there's a lot to be said for putting a long one down, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway. Right. Yes, justified, definitely.
Okay. All right. Now I see you're also using a 12-foot beach caster today. You often work with 13-foots, etc., don't you?
Oh yes, right. But once you extend much beyond 12 feet, then the leverage against you becomes such that you need all the power in your right hand, and that's why the rod in the middle, which is a 13-foot plus, has got the reel mounted at the bottom.
I'm with you.
Now that is for real ultra-long range.
Yeah. Maximising the length of the rod to do the job.
Now, as a general time scale, once you've learnt to cast, say, 150 yards with this outfit, then it's going to take you another probably 15 hours of practice with the reel in the low position to reach the same range.
Right.
But a similar amount of time then spent on it will give you another 20-25% increase in distance again.
That's a lot of distance.
So it will probably push you up to 170, 180, 190 yards with the reel in the bottom.
Okay. Well, as a youngster, I've always fished with fixed spool. I've only come onto the multiplier. I've used my multipliers for boats, obviously, but I've only come onto this casting type for my uptide fishing. Right. Are you saying there's no room anymore, really, for fixed spool casting on a beach?
Oh, no, far from it. The main problem with fixed spools is they do tend to encourage people who are just starting out to substitute brute strength for technique.
Right.
Yeah. If you use brute strength with any of these outfits without the correct technique, you'll get a colossal backlash or an overrun.
Right, I'm with you.
All right, so the outfit will tell you when you're trying to overpower it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And you're using the wrong technique.
Well, yeah,
right.
And that.
So why don't you show me the right one then with what I'm going to cast with?
Guess what I've got here?
Ring balance. Yeah.
Right, now what I'm going to get you to do, I'm going to take your rod off you.
Yeah.
All right, not stealing it. Now what I want you to do is to hook the spring balance into the loop.
Okay.
So that we can measure the amount of pressure.
Right.
Now then, all the old methods of casting said you should have your lead extended in a straight line from the rod. So if we put all this in a straight line, like so, with that down the bottom, if I now try and put this under pressure, tell me how much pressure.
12 pounds.
12 pounds. Right, now then, if we use the high inertia technique, we should be able to get a much greater bend in the rod with far less pressure. So if you bring that inside now,
whereabouts?
That's it, about there. Now what we're looking for is a much better bend in the rod with far less pressure. Well, there's the better bend in the rod. What's the pressure?
4 pounds.
4 pounds. Third the amount of pressure. How much more bend?
Lot more bend.
Lot more bend. Right, if we can bend it, we can cast with it.
Right.
That's the secret of this technique.
Okay.
So if you like to unhook that now.
You don't want to sling a spring balance.
Good Lord, no. I should be interested to try one of these days. Anyway, reel's out of gear.
Yeah.
Put the rod tip right on the ground. Won't wear out. Not going to hurt it. Right, now then, you have 3 fixed points with this method. The rod tip, the lead, and the back of your left heel.
Rod tip, lead, back of left heel.
If you put all that in position and then turn so that your feet are about 45 degrees to the direction you're coming from, okay? Everything there is set. Rod tip, lead, back of left heel. Lift the rod up as if you're throwing a javelin, but just reach up and grab with that hand. Then all you do is you turn your head, don't look at the horizon, look up there. The actual angle is about 37.5 degrees, but if you say 45 degrees, you're about right, okay?
Look at the sky, not
the horizon. That's it. If you look at the horizon, you'll cast to the left and low. If you look to the sky, it'll go up. Everything comes from your head. That's the direction. Everything is there. We know exactly where everything is. We can leave it there. We can stand here for as long as you like. I'm totally relaxed. I see people gripping the rod.
Right.
You don't need to. All right, so from here, turn your head, look up. Up she goes. See the height we got?
Good. And keep
dropping,
it up there.
dropping, dropping, boom.
Right. And thumb on the multiplier
when it hits the ground.
Right.
That's it. So we'll do that again.
It's exhausting watching you reel it all in.
Oh, that's the worst bit. That's the worst bit, of course.
So what sort of range did you have there? Because you obviously weren't applying the strength that you can do now.
Oh, good Lord, no.
So.
No, what we're after is an easy 100 yards.
Okay.
All right. 100 metres. If we say 100 metres, we'll go metric, and that gives you an extra 10 yards with no extra effort.
Right.
Is that cheating?
No, no.
No, that's all right. 100 metres mon vieux. There we go.
Okay.
Right, now then, the big secret with this is you have to experiment with the length of drop that you use.
Right.
Okay? If the rod feels very stiff, lengthen the drop.
What do you mean by stiff?
Well, you'll feel it for yourself. It's something that only you can play with. See, some people might be able to get away with a little short drop like that and cast. That would probably apply to somebody very, very powerful. Conversely, somebody who's not too strong, to make the rod feel softer, use a longer drop.
I'm with you. Okay.
Okay, so if I use a great big long drop like that, make the rod feel very, very soft.
Okay.
If we use a little short drop like that, it makes the rod feel ever so stiff.
I need to work it quicker.
Oh yes, it will do. Watch. As it happens, it goes away a lot faster. Look, real control.
Right.
Don't need any.
Okay.
All right, a few loops at the end, don't worry about. Just, as with up-tiding.
Pull it all out gently.
And it'll all sort itself out. That's not an overrun in the accepted sense, it's just a few loops because I'm too lazy to put my thumb on at the end of the cast. Anyway.
I'll have a go.
And as it's you can wind the damn thing back in again.
Thank you very much for it. Level wind quite important, yeah?
Oh yeah, keep it nice and level. Keep it nice and level. Once you reach tournaments, then you'll start narrowing down as you increase the line level, and you start off paying off a very narrow band, and as the line level drops, so it widens out.
I'm with you.
Okay, so that the amount of line coming off per revolution remains roughly the same.
So I'm better off actually level winding it out rather than building a bit of a bulge, for want of a better word, in the middle.
In the old days when we used plastic spools, we used to bulge it up a little bit to try and ease the pressure on the end plates.
Right.
Because it was quite common, get a Thornback or something like that, and there'd be a clack, and there'd be a sort of trunk of monofilament hanging out the side.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay. Right.
I lost count the number of times I saw that on Clacton Pier years ago. There's the old Pen 100s used to do that.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
So the weight on the ground?
That's it. Now then, swivel yourself round like that. That's it.
Way out to the front, 45 degrees.
Now you want that hand in front of that shoulder.
Yeah.
So we, yeah, I know it sounds good. Put your feet back. That's it. Okay, get yourself there. You want your rod tip, lead, left heel, all in line. Right. Okay. So we're just about right there.
Right there.
That's it. Now remember, this hand is going to come up here and then into your side.
Okay.
That hand is going to push through and up to the sky. Okay, so
my eyes are up and away.
Away you go. Don't try and use brute strength, just sweep the rod round and up.
Let it go.
Away you go. And don't forget to put your thumb on at the end.
The thumb on the end.
That was ideal.
Not too bad. That's an overrun.
Oh, see.
First time I've ever done a cast under instruction and it felt right.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
The important thing is don't use brute strength. I see people go, oh!
Yeah.
Like the old days. I mean, I shouldn't really laugh at them, but I used to see people actually taking a run down the beach and
that's impressive.
Trying to cast. Well, it didn't do them any good.
No.
Because they weren't loading the rod. To cast properly, you must load the rod correctly.
Let the rod do the job.
Precisely.
Okay.
Right, get this in. We'll have another go. Well, you'll have another go. I've got some bits and pieces to put together over there.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll be back in a short length of time after you've had a few goes at this, just to get yourself sorted out. What I want to see is you doing a steady 100, 120, something like that, and then we'll show you how to convert this into the simple pendulum cast.
Not the simple pendulum
The simple pendulum cast.
Okay, so,
by again. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't forget to put it out of gear. Righto, Liam, you're doing fine. You're doing a nice, easy 100, 110 yards. So what we'll do now, we'll just explain a little something about direction.
Yep.
Because you might have noticed, you're casting the same direction every time.
I wasn't thinking about any other, but if I want to change it, what do I do?
Easy, easy. if that's the direction, pointing that way, for the feet like that, don't try and cast over there or cast over there without moving your feet.
Right.
Actually shuffle your feet around to cast that way, shuffle your feet around that way to cast that way. Simple.
Do the job like a gun turret.
Looks a bit stupid, but as you say.
You made the point. Most of the time I'm concentrating on just trying to get it out to sea, you know? And because I'm thinking about trying to get it as far as I can with my inadequate casting system, right? I basically tried to stick in a straight line to get the most distance rather than aiming where it might be an appropriate place to fish.
Well, you've now got an adequate casting system. Now, people say, how can you increase this off the ground? It's quite simple. I'll just show you that. We won't actually cast it, but I'll show you how to do it. All right. If you're using a drop of roughly 6 feet on a 12-foot rod, which is what we've got there.
Yeah.
Now, and that's our standard cast.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to, you can lengthen the drop and start the cast over there. Now you can see what's going to happen, can't you?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right. You're going to generate a colossal amount of power as you come round. The lead's going to follow the rod tip. Okay. If you move too far, though, the lead will start to move outside the rod tip. And as you come round, the lead will come in, which is no good.
Right.
Okay, so there is a point where...
there is some more, I can stretch it some more off the ground, but there's a limit to how far I can go.
That's it,
At what sort of angle would you say?
I would have said with about 60 degrees to the rod tip, about there, which is just nice. In fact, you could come round there and come over and you could give it one heck of a smack.
Right.
Okay?
Do that as your confidence builds, basically.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
But...
talk to me about this simple pendulum cast.
Yeah, well, that's dead easy. If you watch all the top blokes, you'll see I'll stand there like this. I'll lift the rod towards them, the lead will come into the elbow, drop it away, dip, push down, lead will go right up in the air like that.
Right.
But that takes a lot of practice to do.
Yeah. That was spooky here. Yeah.
It's all right, you were quite safe.
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't have hit you. Now, if we put it on the ground as if we're going to do this off the ground cast again, okay, we're all set. If I now push my left hand down towards the ground, watch. Out it goes, wait, up it goes.
Gotcha. A straight push. No action with the right hand.
No.
Straight push down with the left.
Just use your right hand just as a pivot, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Get yourself set in the off the ground cast position, like that.
Yeah.
All set. Push down with left, out it goes.
Yeah.
Little push with the left again, and up she goes.
Right.
Easy.
Okay.
It's
so
dead
that
simple.
gives me the swing, and it keeps the control on my swing.
All right. Now then, this at the moment you see we're casting with the same angle to the cast as the off the ground.
Yep.
Okay. So we're coming through 180 degrees virtually.
Gotcha.
Okay, now then, there is no reason at all why you can't start to move around like that. Now you notice that the angle at the rod tip remains the same.
Right.
But all we're doing is increasing the arc that the lead's going to travel through as we come round.
Right.
Okay, so you can virtually pick your own cast.
Okay.
So for medium distances and just for learning with, you start there.
Right.
Right. As you improve, so you think you can actually use a greater arc, you come round a little bit further.
Gotcha.
And in fact, if you want to, you can come from right round there.
And all the way pendulum cast.
But this is where you're starting to get in the realms of tournament casting.
Right.
Okay, and for doing that, of course, you'd use a much longer drop.
Right.
But there is making it easy, literally. Push down, out it swings, wait, let it climb, and up she goes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Right, get it back on the simple line for me then.
Okay, we want the simple lines to start with. Right, so there's your
On my extra
off the ground drop there.
Yeah.
Now we want a longer drop.
A longer drop. Okay.
Now, always measure your drop. Okay, now in this particular case, let's start off, say,
So using about
down to
9 foot of drop then.
something like that, down to the label. Okay? Right, we've gone over direction.
Yep.
We've gone over the length of drop that we need.
Yep.
We've gone over how to push the hand down and get the lead to swing. Okay?
That's going to take some practicing, I think.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
practice in your back garden by all means, but don't try casting from your back garden or you'll find the next door neighbours 300 yards away
Right.
all be moaning about large lumps of lead through their roof.
Okay.
Now don't laugh, I've done it myself.
Right. All right. So swings only in the back garden.
Swings only in the back garden, that's it, yes, don't go casting. Most places there's a park somewhere out of the way where you can do it, but if you're going to practice in a park, make sure you use a high visibility line,
Right.
then you don't get any complaints from bird
Take a
watchers.
spade to dig your weight up as well.
Oh, well, I've had to do that as well. Anyway, we'll move away from the rods and we'll show you this all in one nice, smooth, easy cast. Now, if you like to stand about 6 feet away from me,
Yeah.
just to give me a little bit of space.
Safe enough here?
Yeah, looks fine. Right, let's get ourselves set. So swing the lead in, plonk it down by your heels, rod tip down, reel out of gear, Turn so your feet are about 45 degrees to the direction you want to go. Push down with your left. Out it goes. Wait for it to climb. Head round. Away she goes. That's it. All set. Now get your body stance set. That's it.
Rod tip back.
Get your feet ready. That's it.
Arm up. Left down in front of right shoulder.
That's it. Now press down. Out it swings. Let it climb back. Now cast. That's lovely. Makes the rod feel ever so soft, doesn't it?
It does.
Feels just like a stick of rhubarb.
There was no strain. Oh, it's scary trying to do the first one. there's a moment when the weight disappears.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to take up, isn't
That's the time to hit it.
it? Okay.
There is a point where the lead actually appears to vanish when you swing it.
Yes, all the weight disappears.
That's right, yeah, well, it's reached the point, it's just hovering. And that's the time when you start the cast. You pick the lead up from the air, in mid-air. Because the essence of pendulum casting, of course, with the simple cast, is all you're doing is you're putting the lead in the air above where you had it on the ground.
Right.
Dead simple.
It strikes me that is the moment to have the confidence
Oh, yes.
as well. That's when you commit to the cast.
If you remember that all a pendulum cast is to get the lead in the air above where you had it on the ground.
Right.
That is it. Now, there is one other way of casting a long distance, and you've got to have the right hat to do it.
Oh, right. Okay.
That will now give you an extra 30 yards.
Great.
All by itself.
With a peak. Yeah. With a peak.
Okay, so
mate.
I've got the bait.
Yeah.
I ain't got enough for you.
Oh, thanks, Phil.
So I'm afraid you're going to have to do a few more practice casts, and I'm going fishing.
You go catch a fish.
So, do you think this diver hat of yours has improved your distance?
Oh yes, wearing this hat, Phil, has given me an extra 30 yards.
Come on, improve it.
Oh, right, okay. Measured me drop, take it out of gear. Feet in the direction I'm casting.
Rod tip, lead and heel, all in line, that's right.
Left hand in front of right shoulder.
Spot on. Look up.
Look up.
Don't forget, look up.
Look up. Cast.
Come on, you take mine, I'll wind it in.
Oh.
Save your poor little arms.
That's it. I'm just a young man.
Problem you've got here is the reel is set much too high up the butt for your own stature.
Right.
Okay, like everybody else that I see on the beach, virtually, they just stick the reel on willy-nilly. The manufacturer's given you a pair of coaster clips, but there is a fairly exact formula to enable you to put the reel exactly where you need it for your own build. So we've got big rod for a big man, smaller rod for a smaller man, ideal, and of course big man, little rod, broken rod.
Right, okay.
So everything's got to match. So what we'll do is we'll take the reel off.
Yeah. You see the He-Man way I put it on.
Stick it in my pocket.
Don't cast while it's
Now.
there. What do I do?
We now put this across your shoulder. I want your hand up next to your shoulder there.
Yeah.
And that hand up next to your shoulder there. I'll take the rod.
Right.
And we'll move that along. Right. Now we've got the width of your shoulders.
Yeah.
Plus the width of your two hands.
Right.
And then if you allow about ½ an inch for every ounce of the lead that you want to cast.
So I've got 150 grams on there.
Well, it's roughly 5 ounces.
5
so about
ounces.
another 2.5 inches. So your
Yeah.
reel actually wants to go about there. So we'll just take that up. There we are. And I'll put a couple of bands of tape on so that the coasters can actually grip this bit of tape.
Right.
And that will make everything all nice and secure.
So shoulder width, then another ½ inch per ounce.
Shoulder width plus your hand width.
Yeah.
Plus a ½ inch for every ounce of the biggest lead you're going to use.
Okay.
Right, we're nearly there. Reel out of pocket. Now we don't have to worry about lining up on these rings
Because you turn the top of the rod.
Just turn the top of the rod round.
Right.
That's it.
Too much squeeze on these things must mean broken blank, yeah?
Well, if you've got a very thin walled blank, yes, you can actually do a bit of damage.
Right.
But
I'm putting the coasters in line. I see you're setting it sort of offset at an angle.
yeah, I put the front one slightly out of line
Yeah.
so it doesn't interfere with the finger. Because
Right.
when I take the thumb off the reel, I usually, I don't know whether it's just me, but I tend to let go with my finger as well, you see. Take the thumb off.
Yeah.
And if you've got a coaster in the way, especially if you haven't got this little piece of rubber on, you end up cutting your finger because some of these, they're quite sharp.
Right.
Right, now try a cast
Okay.
with that set like that. So what we'll do is we'll just straighten up, get everything nice and in line
Turn it
again.
over. Back round a bit.
That's about it.
Keep going. Touch more. A tad. That's about it. Got a wonky eye, so I'd never know anyway.
Right, now do another cast.
Right.
And you feel the
There
difference.
we go with this.
Everything
That's
will
about-
feel much more taut, much more crisp.
Right.
Okay, and you'll find the release velocity for the same amount of effort, you'll find it actually go faster.
Great.
Okay,
Give it
have
a
another
whirl.
go.
See what happens.
Do exactly the same.
Right.
Use roughly the same amount of power as you did last time.
Yeah.
Don't forget to look up and cast up.
Oh yes, this feels
That's the secret.
much shorter than I normally use it. So left hand out, eyes round, eyes up, cast.
No, it's a bit too
Whoa.
down, that one. Have another go. Don't forget, it's got to go up.
Walk backwards here. 2 more feet, 3 more feet, 4 more feet. More feet. Why do they always seem to go on longer than you've ever done them? Great, I'm there. Level winding. How important?
Very important. If you've got a great fat chunk of line on your left
Yeah.
and a narrow chunk of line on your right,
Yes.
then the narrow chunk is going to only feed off a small amount of line.
Right.
Okay, so then your spool is spinning fast,
Uh-huh.
and then the line moves over to where it's very broad
Yes.
and tries to throw off the same amount of line. But in fact,
Gotcha.
you've got more line, so that's where your
I'm
loops
with
come
you.
from.
It's all down to physics at the end of the day, isn't it?
Well, it is really.
Right. On the deck.
That's it. Now, don't forget to go for height.
Tip.
So, turn
Legs.
your head,
Feet.
look up,
Height. Da-da-da.
look up.
Look
That's
up
the
there
secret.
And cast it.
There you go. It's better.
Bang. That actually, I have to say, felt a lot more sensible for my length of arms. I don't understand it totally.
Let me wind it in for you.
I'm becoming
Because
a
you've
tired
got
man.
poor little arms. Now, the big mistake is to try and pendulum cast with about a 3-foot drop. Now,
Right.
I'm always seeing this on the beach. People going tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah.
Right, complete waste of time.
Right.
The longer the drop that you use for the pendulum cast, the softer the rod will appear to be.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah. Again, it's about finding a drop suitable to you
To
initially.
you, that's right. Yeah. Well, what I normally say is for off the ground, use about half the rod length to start with.
Right.
If the rod feels inordinately stiff, lengthen the drop. If the
Right.
rod feels soft, shorten the drop.
Right. Okay.
And there's no reason why you shouldn't start off with about a 6-foot drop just to try the simple pendulum. I mean,
Gotcha.
people start off with great big long drops like this and they start getting into trouble. When you're talking about a big arc.
Right.
See, we're only starting here. To
Right.
use that sort of arc, you want to think in terms of starting
You actually
right,
need to be behind.
right
Yeah.
round here, you see.
Right, I'm with you. Yeah. Yeah, the only way I'm going to get on with this pendulum cast is to keep practicing it. I must admit, I found the off the ground such an effective and simple technique to use. It's the one I've predominantly been using for all my fishing recently.
Well, for most people, the off the ground cast is more than adequate. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
this is your gear, but I mean, I should be able to use it.
Nice high curve. And utterly effortless, Philip Hyde.
There you are, it's about 170 yards, no problem at all.
Right.
Whop it back in again. Old friend of mine, years ago, said a rod won't cast properly unless it's 90% broken. Now, people tend to get very frightened when the rods bend, but rods are designed to bend. Oh, not bad. You better keep practicing that.
Yeah.
You've got to get a little bit more zing in the power stroke.
Right.
A little bit more confidence.
Okay.
Don't worry about the lead hitting the ground. If it does touch the ground,
Yeah.
lengthen the drop. Don't shorten it.
Right.
Lengthen the drop.
Ah, temptation to shorten it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now I just happened to notice that a mate of mine who's way up the other, has just made a bad cast into the saloon bar of the cricketers. So I think maybe we ought to go and join him and see if we can find if his lead went in the fireplace or in the...
Or the doodle. That would be quite a good prelude to casting in confined conditions, because next week I'm rock fishing. You're going to come and show me how to do it on the Plymouth Breakwater, Phil. No tourists, no people, 1.5 miles of space, no danger.
Except to me.
About the best place to take me, isn't it? You're like the 6 swings to the pendulum cast, you know, before I get the thing out.
Well, when you get the hang of it, you'll find it's one out, one in. I was going to say something a bit crude then, but I wouldn't.
No, that's a good idea. Well, it was a gorgeous day before the Force 6 arrived, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a shame about that.
Sea being what it is, this is a classic example. We can see nothing, so therefore you can assume everything's clear. Wrong. There's a million ton of boulders here, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
So talk to me, what do you think about the way we fish given conditions like this, and the fact that we can't see what we're doing when we're not working on a nice sandy beach with clear spreads for miles?
Well, the bottom of the sound here, once you get away from the bottom of the breakwater, then you're on reasonably clear ground. It's a little bit mixed. There's 1 or 2 stray boulders, but otherwise you're reasonably clear. You just have to keep your fingers crossed that you can whip your line up and out of the way, get your whatever you've got on the end up near the surface before you reach the end 40-50 yards.
Right.
Because that's the main problem. Of course, once the tide comes up a little bit, then this what appears to be floating weed, it's not floating, it's just so shallow at the end here. It's only about 2 feet of water down the bottom here. There's tons and tons of weed there. You just have to hope that any fish that you get doesn't dive into it. By the time you get your fish in, with a little bit of luck, you've played him out.
Right.
Leave him out there to play and don't bring him in here and let him thrash about.
Don't go
here.
hurtling it in because of the amount of debris between you and him.
Exactly.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Tire the
Yeah,
fish
that makes
out
sense.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to see it down Torquay, Hope's Nose. People would bring a big place in fresh and he'd dive straight into the reef.
Right.
Whereas if you just took your time and just let him play about outside,
Yeah.
60 yards off, you were perfectly okay. He was
At
tired.
the end of the day, he's going to come up, isn't he?
Exactly.
What would you do about this side? I mean, look at this stuff here, really. How would you fish something like this? Because on,
got to take
on
a
a flood
chance.
tide, it's all coming in. It's got to be.
Oh yeah, you've got to take a chance on this.
Yeah.
When I used to come fishing here with some of the Newton Abbott and Torquay lads, they'd put on 30-35 pound lines straight through,
Right.
6 ounce lead, and just heave it out there about 30-40 yards beyond the boulders.
Right.
And you just had to pray that you could steer in among these. Well, all they are is just huge breakwaters.
They're enormous, yeah, enormous bits of rock. I think in many ways, of course, that perhaps, would you think you're better leaving your rig out there until you've hopefully got a fish on?
Oh yeah, once it's out
rather
there.
than trying to bring anything in for a changeover?
Oh yeah, once it's out there, leave it out there to get a bite.
Yeah.
Chances are, if you're fishing with a bit of ragworm or peter crab, hardback crab, soft crab like we've got today, you'll get a bite from a wrasse.
Right.
Chances are.
Yeah.
So you just leave it there until you get a bite. If after 15 minutes and you haven't had anything, then whip it in quick as you can.
And go like the clappers again.
Again, talking to some of the local boys who used to fish out here a lot, they used to draw a diagram at low tide on here with a bit of chalk so they could
That's a good
mark
idea.
the gaps.
Yes, that's a good idea. In fact, that's a good idea for any venue, really, isn't it? To walk in and just do a little sketch of where the main rocks are and the bits that are going to give you trouble.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the weed is often more trouble than the rocks, isn't it? So here I am with my beach caster, my multiplier, my main lines, my shock leaders, all my terminal tackle. I'm standing on rocks. It's going to get dark soon. What other and final bits of kit should I bring with me to make sure I can fish effectively and safely into the dark from the shore?
Well, the one thing we haven't got today is any sort of pressure lantern. But there again, we're not staying on into dark.
No.
We haven't got a headlight
Right.
because we're not staying on into dark. Basically, we've got everything we need.
Yeah, that does it.
Except a pint of
Got the
Guinness.
lot. Pint of Guinness. Yes. A keg. A barrel. Whoops.
Excellent.
Apart from the little bump into the breakwater on the first attempt, that wasn't bad, was it?
No, that was all right. It's going in the right direction, that's the
Yeah,
main
I'm getting
thing.
comfortable at and confident at getting it in the right direction now.
Well, that's the main thing. Live sand eel going out now.
Uh-huh. Yeah, keep working on that, Phil. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. I must take you on a boat sometime.
What, where you don't need the car?
Where you don't need to cast, you know. Where you lower it 250 feet.
Instead of slinging it.
That's right, yeah. That's a good game. Yeah. I can cast 80 yards straight down, you know.
All we've got to do now is wait for and we're away.
I should wind in that slack on mine, shouldn't I?
Yeah, take that up a little bit. Actually, one of the things that puzzled me about this place, I've never been on. Access is denied for most of the year, isn't it? I mean, I can understand the waters actually wash over this. That's where all this flotsam rubbish and
It
stuff.
does. I mean, I've come down. The beauty of this from a boat point of view is that even when you've got a huge southerly blow, you can actually anchor up just inside the curve at the end of the breakwater by the lighthouse and cast out into the stream. So you've got a 4-7 belting through, but you can sit in a boat and go fishing.
Lovely.
Tremendous
Just the
stuff.
job.
You know.
That's the job. Of course, here, this side in a boat you can't catch bass. That side in a boat you can.
You can, absolutely. Yeah, I have never caught a bass on the inside of the breakwater.
Well, let's see if
Not at all.
that live sand eel does any good.
Yeah.
Mind you, they'll raise like a bit of live sand eel. So they're like
Do they? Yeah.
Well, they're like a bit of dead sand eel.
Racing into the sunset.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Great. Can't go wrong. What are you going to show me next time we go out?
Fixed balls. Fixed balls. There's a subject.
Sadly neglected.
Yeah, well, the big problem, of course, is that they've always been the sort of bad boy in the fishing world. You know, they've always been the one that the poor chap who can't cast very well tends to end up using.
So what are you going to do then? Sling this other line out, give yourself another chance while you pull that fish in?
Well, I'll leave that one knocking away there.
Yeah. Happily feeding.
I think I can double my chances here. You should have brought your other rod.
I should have done actually, yeah.
Never mind. Let's see how we go.
Increases all the odds, doesn't it?
Hi, I'm Alan Yates, over here on the west coast of Ireland, County Clare, doing a spot of fishing. We're here courtesy of the Irish Tourist Board. This is Strand. See, it's a nice little strand, small surf at the moment, not good enough for bass fishing or anything. Over there we've got Inishmore, the Aran Islands, the biggest one is Inishmore. We've got Blackhead up here and Galway's over the far side of the bay. There's a lot of problems that anglers have with shore casting. Most of the shore casting you see is based on tournament requirements. Anglers casting 200 yards plus. The practicalities of fishing on the shore involve casting from beaches, from strands, from rocks, piers, in fact anywhere where there's a lot of rubbish. You've got rocks behind you, an unshore footing, a bank even behind you. And it's just impossible to use tournament conditions. So you're very much restricted. I've chosen this Strand. We can move down to the water in a minute, do a spot of casting. It's nice and flat. There are a few rocks, but I'll go right through the basics of casting from A to B. Right, now for casting on the beach like this for practicing, use a 6-ounce lead or a 4-ounce lead. you've got to pull it in each time you cast. So what I've come up with, it's not my idea, I'll say his new head, is a tennis ball. Brilliant. Wire loop in it, bit of line tied on the end of the swivel. You can see it as well as anything else, and of course if it hits someone on the head, won't do any damage. I've got, this is the leader, it's a shock leader to take the initial shock of the casting of the lead. I don't really need them for tennis balls, but they're handy. You'll be able to see the leader line clearly. That shock leader wants to be the length of the rod plus about 6 turns around the reel, plus the length of the trace or tackle you're using. Wouldn't be sensible to have a 60-pound leader and then a 30-pound body on your trace, because obviously that would snap. Now, leaders are essential for all beach fishing. I'm afraid I take it rather for granted that everybody uses leaders. If you break off or snap off or have an accident with a 6-ounce or a 4-ounce lead, it do tremendous damage to somebody. And it's just irresponsible for anybody to cast without a leader anywhere on any style. It's no good for people to say, I only cast 20, 30 yards, so I don't use a leader. You can still kill someone with the smallest, slightest powered cast. So, use a leader. Right, and that one's rigged up. Now, making the choice between casting up the butt or down the butt. Now, there is a difference in the casting action. With the reel up the butt, the actual working part of the rod is slightly shorter, you notice. You know, I can compare the 2 feet. Now that does a lot to lessen the power. This outfit, the timing and the speed have to be perfect. We'll put a ball on that one as well, and I'll show you. Now I've cast with the reel up the butt for a long time, until I went to Africa and had to fish with a reel at the butt, and I found it so convenient. And one of the things it does is it slows the cast down. You'll appreciate that the casting arc, because the working part of the rod from reel to tip is longer, the casting arc is bigger, therefore it's slower. It doesn't matter what speed my arm moving, with a bigger rod it's slower. Therefore it's more forgiving. It's more forgiving for mistakes in timing. It's more forgiving in keeping bait in position. It doesn't spray it everywhere like someone who casts with rod up the butt does. If you see somebody like Paul Kerry, who casts up the butt cast, his timing is perfect, he's a marvellous caster, he's 1 in a million. The average guy just can't cope with the speed and the timing, and he has problems, bird's nest. Cast like this, providing you've got the reel loaded properly and you've got the right tackle, you shouldn't get any bird's nest at all. These modern reels have got bearings in them, you can put brakes in them, brake blocks inside, everything to stop you getting an overrun. Right. Now, casting has progressed a very long way since man started fishing, since he attacked the shore with a rod and reel. Immediately you get a rod, it doesn't matter if you're a non-fisherman, a learner, he'll pick up the rod and he'll do what they call the overhead thump. He'll just simply put it over his shoulder and cast like that. Now, for years and nowadays, lots of people cast like that. It's a simple and effective athletic movement that does the business. Doesn't matter whether you use a fixed ball or a multiplier, you can cast up to 100 yards without too much effort. Simply using your arms. There's nothing wrong with the overhead thump, except if you want to get a bit more distance, it's limited. About 20 years ago, a guy called Les Moncrief, he was an engineer, he thought, well, the overhead thump's fine, but let's introduce a bit of engineering thought here. Let's put a bit of body in as well as a bit of arm. So what he did, I'll do it with this rod, it's a little bit more show. What he did was he leaned back. His cast was called the layback. Now, he laid back like that. And he came round like that. Now, he introduced arm movement and body movement, and that cast put leads at around 180 yards, and it got close to the 200 yards on the tournament field. Variations of that cast are what is known as the South African cast, where the angler or the caster puts his lead behind him on the floor leans back and sweeps it around at around 2 o'clock. Both of those casts are capable in the right hands with modern tackle of 200 yards with a lead, not with bait and tackle. Now when you come to use a lead, obviously there is a slight difference, because if you get a tangle, a bird's nest or anything, it's going to snap the line and send the lead off wherever, probably 300 yards. Now, as I said, I progressed from the reel up the butt to the reel down the butt. And what I do, a bit more room for this one. Now, footwork, whenever you're casting, footwork is often talked about. It's rather like golf. There is a right way of doing it, but for a lot of people, they find themselves a comfortable stance where they're not getting tangled up in the cast and they're happy with that. And I'm a believer that footwork isn't that important. As long as you can swivel your body freely, that's okay. Where all your power is in the arms, the body, and that compression that you've put in the swing. On the backswing, the lead goes up. Now it goes up here. Now as it's going away, that's when you hit it, because that is going away, bending the rod, putting compression in it. Then you start your power stroke round. You're pushing with this arm and pulling with this one. Right. Pushing with this arm and pulling with this one. Now, for the tournament caster, he might have an elaborate drop right down here. Practical fishing again, as I said, probably butt ring. Gives you a nice, easy, smooth cast that won't get into too much trouble. Lock the spool down, don't forget to do that. Out, back, and power. What I'll do in a minute, I'll put a lead on just to show you the full cast, but as you can see with the tennis ball, you can just keep repeating it until you get it right. Now casting, no matter what kind of casting we're talking about, whether we're talking about sea casting or anything, is something that some people can do and some people can't. Some people can learn it, some people can't. There are people that are naturally able to cast. Some never seem to be able to learn. Now if you are in any trouble at all, you can't teach yourself to cast, an instructor is the first step. An instructor can put you right on the spot. He can say you're standing wrong, you've got too long a drop, your tackle's not made up right, all the problems are sorted out, because basically if you get a problem in casting in the sea, it is your fault. It's not going to be your tackle, it's going to be how you're doing it. You need to be smooth. I mean, one of the most basic problems anglers get when they cast is they jerk. They try the pendulum, they come round like this and they stop. Then they remember they're casting and they go like that. And that jerk, lead to rod tip, momentarily stops it, may even tangle around the top, but whatever, it causes the lead to fly off at a different angle. I mean, there are some casters that cast always to the right, some to the left. It's not important, because all you've got to really do is spin yourself round once you know where you're casting. But it is a smooth action that gets you out of trouble. It stops you getting birds' nests, and they are important, because if you're fishing and continually undoing tangles or changing reels, that's time lost. So you've got to get a smooth cast that won't get bird's nest. Next, out on the field. Now, as I said, casting from the field, it's flat and comfortable. But one thing you are doing if you do go out in the field and practice is you're concentrating on your casting. Too often, anglers want to go fishing. And if you practice casting while you're fishing, you're concentrating too much on the fishing. Your mind's on the fishing, you're not interested really in the casting. So get out on the beach like this, get out on the field, wherever, and practice. And preferably, if you've got somebody that can really cast, that'll give you a hand and give you some instruction, get hold of him and get him to tag along. It is important that the outfit that you've got is rigged up right. It's no good getting a big multiplier, loading it up with as much line as you can, and then going out in the field or out on the beach. The tackle has got to be right. Casting itself, you'll get no problems if your tackle's balanced and right. But if you try to cast with the wrong gear and make do, then you will have problems. Rods, again, we go back to rods. there are a lot of off-the-peg rods that you can buy. The quality is very good. Now you're looking for 2 or 3 things. Now I haven't really touched on fixed spool reels. Now I don't cast with a fixed spool reel very often, but they are good for casting. They're a good, nice, easy rod for a beginner, a reel for a beginner to use. They don't get bird's nest, but unfortunately they are a bit limited, and a lot of sea anglers feel, hence the name of fixed spools, mangles and all those nicknames, that they're not really built for the job. They're more for fresh water. Now the modern fixed spools are getting better. The gearing's better, the line lays better, they do cast better, so then don't totally put them out of their mind. If you're a learner, they may be a good reel to cast with. If you've been sea fishing for any length of time and got a multi-plier already, then I would recommend you stick to it and go for one of the 6,000 sizes. Any of the reputable makes are good. Now, when you do buy a rod, with regard to reels, they are ringed up differently. These are all multiplier rods, ringed up for multipliers. Now, a multiplier rod, you reel in like this, up the top. So therefore the line runs along the top. And the rings have got to be in position so that they stop the line touching the blank, like that. Now you see that if I didn't have a ring there, or didn't have a ring there, the line would touch the blank and you'd get a crossover effect. Now with a fixed spool reel, you're reeling underneath. Therefore, the line is nowhere near the blank and you can get away with less rings. So if you come across a rod in the shop that's got 4 rings on it, it's a fixed spool. It's designed for fixed spool casting. If you come across one like this, it's usually marked, it usually says FS or multiplier. If you come across one like this that's got plenty of rings, it's for multiplier. You can mix the two, but I wouldn't recommend using a fixed spool rod on a multiplier. I'll get that right in a minute. A fixed spool rod for multiplier casting. You can do the other way around. You can use a fixed spool reel on a multiplier rod, but not the other way around. I think I've got that right. Anyway, right, let's take this silly tennis ball off and put a lead on and do a proper cast for you. The old nail clippers are ideal for cutting monofilament line cleanly. Fortunately I need glasses now, sign of the age I think. Right, let's put a lead on. Now I've got a 5 1/4 ounce lead here. You'll find that the lighter leads will cast better than a too heavy lead or a too light lead. It's like the loading of the reels. There is an ideal lead, the same as there's an ideal reel load. Go above the one or other, or below, the tolerances are narrow and you're in trouble. Now 5 1/4 ounce lead is the lead they use in most tournaments because it is just about the right weight for a 6,000 size reel and 15-pound line. 4 ounces ideal for a younger angler, but it lacks push through wind. 8 ounces ideal in a storm if you can manage it. Anyway, we'll stick this on there. If you're tying mono to a lead just for casting, it's best to have either a clip or a double blood knot. Just gives it that little bit of extra security. 4 turns is quite sufficient. Wet the knot as you pull it tight. There we are. Clip the ends off. I'm a bit fastidious about ends. I don't like ends on my tackle. Bit of a nuisance. Monofilament in your box. Right. Just double check that knot. Everything's safe. It's a good idea to examine your leaders and your knots quite regularly. In fact, I don't use a leader more than about twice. Most times I have a new leader on every trip. Right. Now one of the problems with casting, forceful casting, especially the pendulum, is gripping the spool. You tend to get very wet weather, your thumb gets wet, you're handling weed off your line, your thumb gets wet and slimy. And halfway through the cast, if your thumb slips off, you're in trouble. Now there are various ways you can get over that. Some anglers wear a thumb stool. It's a nice comfortable way of doing it. Others have a bit of rubber taped on the butt of the reel, below the reel, that folds over the spool and their finger goes on that spool. The extra grip stops things like abrasion on your thumb, which can be painful. I don't do that because I don't like having anything on my thumb. I don't know, it's something personal that I like to be able to feel. So what I do if my fingers are wet and I've got a lot of weed and slime up, just get a bit of sand. Gives you a lovely grip on the spool. Now, obviously sand is not compatible with mono, so if you're doing that too regularly, it'll damage your line. I don't use the same line more than a couple of trips, the same as I don't use the same leader. So it tends to be renewed regularly, so therefore the damage is minimal. Right, legs apart. I've got a medium drop here. This is what I would use for most of my fishing, as I say, just below the butt ring and the cast. Now your control of the spool as you cast with your thumb. You don't want to clamp your thumb on it, on your spool, just hover it above. If you do feel a fluff coming, the reel's overrunning, you've got too much line coming off, you can feel lumps coming up, just snap your finger on quick and stop it. If you stop it in mid-air, okay, the lead's going to fall back, you've got a false cast, you've got to reel in again and start again. But at least you've staved the line snapping. One word of warning, if you do slap your thumb on the spool, it's liable to burn the line. So try to thumb it on the side of the spool. So what I do, just thumb it there. The only trouble with practice casting with a lead, it takes so long to reel it in. There is another thing with practice casting. If you are using a lead, the line tends to dry out in bright sunshine, and if you do get a slight tangle, it'll bust even easier, or nest and tangle quicker. So it's not really a good idea to cast too often with a dry line. I mean, some of the casters put water over their reels and all sorts of things. The best casters just do 3 casts and that's it with one spool, don't use it anymore. Well, that cast went about 160, 175 yards, which in today's condition, we got minimal wind in our face. It's about force 4. Adequate if I was fishing. Put a couple of leads on there, a couple of weights, I'll get it right in a minute, a couple of hooks on there and a big bait, and your distance will come down by 1/3. So obviously, the less hooks you've got on, the further you cast, the less smaller baits you've got on, the further you cast. Now, still concentrating on that, now we get to the leader knot. The leader knot's just coming up. Now with this tapered leader, I've got 16-pound leader to 15-pound main line, so the knot is small. Now, the ordinary standard uni leader knot is not really adequate for joining 2 lines of equal diameter. If you're using a 60-pound leader straight through 60-pound, joined to 15-pound, you want a special knot like the uni knot. With the tapered leader, you can use a blood knot. Now, the advantage of these is that they pull through weed easy and they don't damage your thumb if you happen to catch your thumb on the spool. But whatever you do, when you put the leader knot, when it comes to reeling in, you've got the leader knot in, make sure it goes on the side away from where you're thumbing the reel. In my case, I'm thumbing there, so I'll put the leader there. Right, I think we'll go and do some fishing up at Blackhead, which is just up a little bit up the coast a little bit.